Well, what's up, guys? We are so excited that tonight we're bringing you the final installment of May is for Marriage. Hopefully, this has been a breath of fresh air for you in the middle of being quarantined, in the middle of life is all completely different than you anticipated your May would look like. But hopefully, these every week have been a breath of fresh air, a little shot in your arm, and have kind of helped spur your marriage on a little bit in the midst of a season that you didn't choose and that I didn't choose either. You're in for a real treat tonight. But hopefully, as you've been tracking along, you found great value. Like week one, when we had Joel, Jen, and our great friend Midge on, as they're talking about what it looks like to develop intimacy in your marriage. Hopefully, that was we went very first week, it was like super deep, and we pushed you really hard on that. And then the next week, we had one of our favorites, Ted Cunningham, on, and so we went from super deep to lots of laughs, which is also super healthy for our marriages, and that's what Ted and Joel talked about is laughter in your marriage and how much value that can bring for you. And then we brought you something completely different, and we said, hey, we know that a lot of restaurants are closed and the movies are closed, and so we gave you a chance to do date night in, and we shared that experience with you. And there's a video that went along with that, and kind of a whole experience. And hopefully, you were able to engage with us there on that as well. And tonight, on our final installment of May is for Marriage, I couldn't be more excited to have Kathleen on with us. I'm going to introduce her here in just a second, but let me go ahead and tell you a couple of things. One, just like we did with Ted, we're going to be taking your questions. And so all throughout this, if you've got questions, if this content kind of sparks something in you, just drop your questions in the comments. And then we're going to leave time at the end to make sure that we get to those. I've been through this content before, and I feel like I always come out with tons of questions of how I'm going to apply this stuff. So make sure you drop those in to the questions. And then, even before that, here's what I'd like to know. I'd like to know where you're watching this from. Like, where are you right now? What city are you in? What state are you in? What's your life look like right now? Drop that in the comment, and we'll start engaging back and forth there, because we really want this to be an interactive event, not just something where you feel like you sit back and absorb, but that you participate in along with us. So before you even drop your question, just let us know where you're watching from. I think that's always fun for us to see kind of where we're at tonight. Well, let's bring Kathleen on. Kathleen, thanks for being with
Hi.
us tonight. We're so excited that you'd be with us. I'll tell you this: you may not know this, but you've already impacted our church. My first introduction to this content that you're going to present tonight was a couple years ago at a retreat that I was at, and this colors assessment, this temperament assessment, it was given in a way that it was like, here's some great leadership content. And so I kind of learned about myself and learned how I was wired and what kind of impact that would have on the people that I'm leading and the people that I'm leading across to and up to and down to. And I was just blown away at how impactful it was. But all I kept thinking was, gosh, this would be great if I didn't just understand how this impacted my leadership,
Right.
how it also impacted my marriage. And then lo and behold, like 3 months later, you come out with this, I said this, you heard that study.
Yes.
And I'm going, oh, Kathleen must have read some of my emails, and she knows that I would really find this helpful. And so
I did it for
we
you.
ended up doing it as a short-term group study last fall, I think it was. And I'll tell you, it was one of our biggest attended studies. We had the most people in the room of almost any of our short-term group studies. But two, and here's something that I think it shows you kind of the power and the staying power of this content. Not only would have a lot of people show up, but we didn't have any drop off from week 1 to week 6. So people just kept showing back up week after week, wanting to know more, wanting to interact more, and not just wanting to like absorb the content, but wanting to interact with other people around this. And I was really floored to see that every single week people showed up with energy.
Yeah.
couldn't wait to dive back into the content. Our group went through it as well. We went through it in the fall, and it's really changed the language of our group. Um, it's really changed how we talk about our own personalities, how we interact as couples, even how we interact as a small group.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, we were the kind of group that we always wanted to have like these fun nights, these social nights, but
Yeah.
we couldn't really get them off the ground. But after we went through the study, we figured out who the yellows were in our group, and we were like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, our
You're
yellows, you
gonna
want
do
to
it.
have fun nights, and they loved it. They
Yeah.
came alive.
Yeah.
We
And that
gave them an
works.
opportunity. All right, so let me just for those of you who like you're hearing this temperaments, you're hearing this color stuff, and you don't have any idea what it is. That is a-okay. So if you're clueless to everything that I've talked about up until this point, and you have no idea who Kathleen is, that's all right. I'm going to give her a chance to kind of walk us through that. But let me tell you a little bit about Kathleen. Let me just actually I'm going to just read her bio. So, and I love this. Kathleen has one goal in life. It's to help people learn to speak kindly to each other. I'll get to the rest of your bio in a second, but Kathleen, it feels like we need that now more than just
Ever.
about any other encouragement is to speak kindly to each other because it feels like we often don't as a culture.
Yes. And we don't. That's the whole idea, is just to realize the power of words.
Yeah. Um, Kathleen is certified in biblical studies and Christian counseling psychology, spent more than 25 years coaching clients in the art of communication. She's married with two grown children. And I think all that's great. And it kind of gives us maybe a level of trust with you because you've done this and you've seen this in people's lives and you've written about this and you've coached people. But as I read the last part of your bio, I know you're going to get to some serious stuff here in just a
Yes.
second, and I want
Yes.
you to, but I can't blow past this too fast. Um, you said that you have a surprising passion for martial arts
Uh-huh.
and pickup trucks.
Pick up
Uh,
track.
you just like you're academic, professional. Like you've got it all dialed in, and then there's this like these outliers that I can't quite figure out. Help me connect Kathleen to those two things.
Well, again, as we go through tonight, we're going to learn the difference between temperament and personality. But I'm originally from outside of Detroit, so I'm from Motown. So I've had a lot of different vehicles, and the one vehicle that I never owned between the Corvettes and the 442 Chevelles is a pickup truck. So now I have a pickup truck.
Well,
And
you've moved to Atlanta, so it makes sense, right? You got to get your pickup
doesn't
truck.
it? Yeah, it makes sense. And I love my truck.
Well, we're so thrilled that you're with us, and so I just want to give you a few minutes, and I'll give you a little uninterrupted time to kind of walk us through this, help orient us around what this temperaments are and what kind of impact it's going to have, or that it could have on our marriages. So let me turn you loose. Walk us through some content,
Thank
guys.
you.
Kathleen's got some slides that she's going to share with us. So feel free to take notes as we go along, and then, like I said, drop your questions in to the comments there, and we'll try to get to those at the end.
And this is great. What a great tee off, because what Ben is saying is that when he heard it, he knew that something was different about it. And that's what I want to let you guys know tonight, is that when I heard it, I knew there was something different. My background is in communication. And when I was moving from California to Maryland, I listened to some tapes on the temperaments. And while I was listening to those tapes, I realized I had to learn everything I could about the temperaments. There was something connecting temperaments to communication. And I can remember being very young and hearing people speak unkindly to each other. And it broke my heart. And that's where a lot of times we're told we find our passion or our calling is in the things that break our heart. So my mission then has become to help people speak kindly to each other. And when I merged that with the temperaments, it made all kinds of sense. And why that's important is I believe God has designed each of us beautifully and authentically. And I'm very much about everybody being their authentic self and the best version. And so, what it also matched up with is my family's Bible verse. We have a Bible verse that I have grown up with, my children have grown up with. And this Bible verse is something that, whether you're even a believer or not a believer, for communication, it is a perfect outline to go by. And what this verse says is, no unwholesome words come out of your mouth, only what builds others up according to their needs and benefit all who listen. And so when you read that verse, Paul is challenging us in the words that we use. And he's also trying to give us a heads up that each word that we say is going to land differently with different people. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to get a little glimpse of what I teach, because what I teach is the temperaments through the framework of Ephesians 4:29. Because through that framework, we're going to realize that our temperament is our first language. It's the first way we speak. It's how we're innately wired. So what we have going on right now, out forever since I've been doing this, decades, is people get confused between personality assessments and temperament. So personality assessments and temperament are completely different. Temperament is what you're born with. Temperament is innate and it is unchangeable. It is like hair color, eye color, voice print, fingerprint, and these things are unchangeable. If I was to dye my hair blonde today, in about 3 days, and I'm sure a lot of people in quarantine are figuring this out, my natural color would come back out. So innate temperament you're born with. Personality is something different. Personality evolves over time. It's constantly moving. It's religion, culture, life experience, birth order, education. So that is constantly evolving. But what you're going to find out is, for example, say Ben is one temperament and I'm another, but we're both middle children. How we experience being a middle child is going to come from our temperament. How we experience it and then act it out is going to be our part of our personality. So we're going to talk about temperaments tonight because, again, that's where your true communication comes from. And this is where I see people have the aha moments in my office. But we have to understand that temperaments started 2,000 years ago. They date back as far as Hippocrates. You can find documents dating all the way back 2,000 some years. And during that time, the Greek verbiage was used. So the Greek names for the temperaments are sanguine, choleric, phlegmatic, and melancholy. And those can be a mouthful. I have children that come in my office, so I was like, maybe it would be a good idea to match them with colors so that they would be easier to remember. But what I found was adults like it too, because these aren't the most attractive names, I guess you would say. They came from humor of the body or fluid of the body. So right off the bat, people do not like to know that they're being lined up with phlegm or black bile or blood. So we're going to stick with the colors tonight. So we're going to learn a little bit about what each color is. And we're going to look at this chart to help you see where we've moved the Greek names to the colors. So the sanguine is yellow, the choleric is red, the melancholy is blue, and the phlegmatic is green. Now, this chart right here is an extremely important chart because it's on here in this order for a reason. And the reason is that the top two temperaments, the choleric and the sanguine, which is the red and the yellow, these type of people are extroverts. This does not mean in communication that they like to be around people. What it means is their thoughts and emotions go outward. When this person hears something, their reaction time is very fast. They have no filter. So these people are just saying things out, whoa, and then they're going, oh my gosh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Or the reds are going to be going, they just needed to know, right? So they talk before they think, right? The blue and the green, the ones on the bottom of the chart, these are introverts. Again, this does not mean that these people do not like to be around people. I happen to be a blue-green, and I love people on my own terms. My thoughts and emotions go inward. So I'm a processor. So I'm going to think before I talk. So it really is a difference between thinking before they talk or talking before they think when it comes to communication for extrovert and introvert. That's the top and bottom of the chart. The sides of the chart also have meaning. The red and the blue temperaments are task oriented people. These people want to be productive, they want to accomplish something, they want to get things done. They will pick a task over a person every day of the week. The other side, the yellow green temperament, these are people oriented people. They want connection, they want relationships, they want everybody to get along as a team. They are going to pick people over tasks. So again, you've heard that and you're thinking, okay, so why is that a big deal? Well, it's a big deal, especially when you really look at the chart. Because, for example, anybody listening that's a green, I happen to be married to a green, they are an introvert that likes to be around people. So we want to think, now that's going to start to make a little bit of sense that, they kind of push off tasks and they would rather hang with their friend or their buddy, right? And then the reds, extrovert, but are task driven. So they're going to do things that benefit them in a productive sort of way over connecting with a person first. So that chart is extremely important because when you do the assessment in the book, you are going to have a dominant and a secondary temperament. And when we talk about temperaments, they're either horizontal or they're vertical. They're usually never diagonal because that would be like being polar opposite of yourself. So what we're going to do, I know a lot of people that have done the assessment already are like, oh my gosh, what do I do? I'm polar opposite. Well, as we go through this, I think hopefully you'll get a little clarity on the difference between personality and temperament and really what we're watching for. In fact, why don't we watch this short video and see if we can identify ourselves a little bit better? So this is where I usually see when I'm in a live studio, I see in the audience a lot of elbowings going on. So I'm hoping that as you're watching this video, you're not only finding something that you're saying, well, yeah, you know what? I think that is me. But not even that you're recognizing somebody else. Because what is different in the I said this, you heard that Ben even mentioned, that's different than personality is not only are you going to learn about you in the first language that you speak, but it is going to be something that you're going to be able to learn to identify another person and then speak the language they speak so that we can love another person better. That's our goal. But how do we go through that? How do we learn about the temperaments? Why is it important to know about who you are. And how do we know? Well, God was very strategic in the fact that he wired us both with a whole set of weaknesses and a set of strengths. And a lot of times in the office people go, "Well, why weaknesses? Like I don't really want to talk about weaknesses." And with children, I usually do not talk about weaknesses, but with adults, even when you open the I Said This workbook, we all go immediately to our weaknesses because there's something inside us that's telling us it's holding us back from who we're supposed to be in the spirit. So let's talk about a little bit about each temperament's strengths and weaknesses, because in order to know your strength, you have to know your weakness. We know it's light in here because we know dark. We know light or loud because we know quiet. So the yellow, the sanguine, this person descriptively is somebody who's joyful, encouraging, inspiring, affectionate, popular. They're expressive, they're creative. They just are very good at seeing the best in people first. But you yellows out there, how do you know that's your strength? Unfortunately, it's because you can be a compulsive talker, hate to be alone, can get things and go a little bit over the top, have a tendency to interrupt when people are talking. So again, in order to know the strength, you have to be aware of the weakness. For the reds, this is a person that is driven, decisive, works well alone, takes direction, is confident, excels in emergencies. How is a red's going to know that? Because they can be bossy. They can be impatient, quick-tempered, arrogant, dislike tears and emotions. Again, we want to not only be truthful in our strengths, we want to be truthful in our weaknesses, because again, we want to be able to move from those weaknesses into the strengths. For the blue, this is me again. The strengths are we're analytical, we're perfectionists, we're empathetic, we're logical. We're also creative, musical, artistic. This is a part of blues that a lot of people don't recognize, and I encourage that once we find the blues in our life, that we encourage that creative, artistic side of them. Again, how are we going to know that? Because we can be moody. We can be critical, judgmental, withdrawn, skeptical. And I put purposely on here insecure socially, because I'm looking at all the blues, all my fellow blues out there. Blues feel odd. And if you have a child that's blue, you want to know that right out of the gate. A lot of blues feel like we're round pegs going into a square hole. So just knowing that out of the gate, you can love somebody better with your words, right? Because words that are said, especially over a child, you can even think of that in yourself right now. You may be carrying words that were spoke over you into your adulthood. So we want to be careful again. And in knowing the strengths and weaknesses, we're going to be able to pick words that help a child thrive, or a friend thrive, or a marriage thrive. For the greens, their strengths is this is a person who's innately kind. They're diplomatic, they're even-tempered, they're patient, they're tolerant. But again, how are they going to know that? Because they can be unenthusiastic, indecisive, no sense of urgency. I happen to be married to a green, so I know this for a fact. For 32 years, no sense of urgency, and resist change, and can be incredibly stubborn. This person, a lot of times people come in my office and they're pegging somebody as red, and really what you have is a very stubborn green. So again, what would be a loss for me when you are learning the temperaments is to put people in boxes. And if somebody's saying right now while they're listening, I don't want to be put in a box, don't label me, well, most likely you're red, because you do not like to be told what to do, but that's okay. I don't want that either. The reason I do not want that is because descriptive words isn't what the temperament's about. Descriptive words help you identify a temperament, but what the truth is that on the chart that we saw before, Jesus was the strengths of all of them. And once we master our temperament, there is nothing keeping you from learning the strengths of another temperament. But we want to be the best in who God created us to be first. So again, how we do that is we become aware of what our strengths and weaknesses are. And then we do this exercise that I do in my office, and I do it all the time. And it's, I have a tendency, but I'm going to choose. So again, this is covered in the book, and I think it's really important that we learn in all the temperaments. For example, me, I have a tendency to remember the negatives, but I'm going to choose logic, or I'm going to choose compassion. So that exercise is critical for any communication in any kind of a relationship. So that's really important. Also, it's important while you're understanding the different temperaments to realize that the temperaments speak right out of their innate wiring. So each temperament is going to say words that they're wired to say. And if we will listen to understand instead of listening to react or respond, we're going to be able to understand another person much more quickly and able to identify them and then speak their language. For example, the yellows, they often speak with animated, fun, exaggerative, people-oriented words. So they're going to say things like, oh, that sounds fun, or oh, come join me, or I totally forgot. You know, they're the ones who raise their hand to volunteer, but then go, oh, is that Thursday? I missed it. You know, I'll come next Thursday. So again, fun, people-oriented words. For the red, they're going to talk words that are bold, bossy, confident, controlling, almost like shooting orders sometimes. Very bullet point, bottom line words or statements like, I'll do it, hurry up, follow my lead. And this is somebody who, again, has to watch as we learn the temperaments and talking. This is somebody who struggles with tone and volume. So they're going to, in an exchange, might say something to somebody like me, and I might say, hey, why are you yelling at me? And they're like, I didn't yell at you. I just told you. And I'm like, now you're really yelling at me. So again, it's listening to how somebody says it. And the exact words that they choose to say are identifiers in the temperaments. For the blue, I'm going to use words because I'm blue, like that are detailed, analytical, compassionate words. So I'm going to say, like, I've been giving that some thought. Or do you trust him, or do you trust her? And this, I'm sure my kids have heard in exhaustion. Are you sure that's safe? So again, what we're going to do is we're going to listen, not only to what they're saying, but how they're saying it as well. The greens, these people are going to talk with sarcastic, easygoing, patient, kind words. So they're going to say things like, no big deal, or I'm good with whatever. Can't that wait till tomorrow? They're going to talk straight out of their temperament. So this is really important, that not only does the temperament speak words that are from their temperament, but they're also going to hear words from their temperament. Hence the cover of the book, I said this, you heard that. What I'm really hoping as your church goes through this is that you're going to learn what people need to hear so that you know what to say. So in this day and time of crisis, and we have to realize that also when you're alone and when you're in crisis, your true temperament is going to surface. So we want to definitely know what those are. But the other thing that happens is technology. Technology is also out there. So emails, texts, all this also, if we pay attention, you will be able to even identify temperaments in a text. And I know that for a fact because I brought one with me. But first, before we do that text, I want to tell you what a key point is in temperament, and that is the innate needs. The innate needs of the temperaments is what separates me from personality. This is so crucial. It is like food and water. When you understand this chart that you see on your screen right now, it will seriously change every conversation you have with anybody. For the yellows, it's approval, affection, attention, and acceptance. And that is so critically important to them. If they have been trying to fill those needs since they were little. And what I want you to know is you have your own definition of these. Now, in the book, I put definitions that I've heard the most, but I want you to sit there and think about them and think about what do they mean to you. Because, for example, attention for most yellows does not mean that they want to be center stage. It means that they want you to put down what you're doing, make eye contact with them, and listen to their stories. And if we do that with our yellow spouse or child or friend, it is going to change every conversation with them because they're going to leave feeling more loved and understood. For the reds, it's loyalty, sense of control, appreciation, and credit for work. Again, sense of control. Most reds do not want to be in charge. What sense of control means is that everybody's pulling their weight and doing what they said they were going to do. And when that happens, the reds do not feel like they have to be in charge. So again, knowing these definitions are critical. For the greens, harmony, feeling of worth, lack of stress, and respect. Respect for a green means being asked for their opinions and ideas. The greens, we need to balance advocating for yourself and people around you showing respect because they need to know that you have good ideas. It's just being asked for them. And then for the blues, safety by far, sensitivity, support, and space and silence. Sensitivity for a blue is the most misunderstood because we are very emotional people, but we're private and reserved. And what I hear most about sensitivity for blues is they just want to feel understood. So again, these innate needs, game changer. They will change every single conversation you have, but we must take time understanding the definitions. So let's take a second from that and look at a text exchange between my own children. This is a text between my son, Bryce, and my daughter, Avery. Bryce is a blue, Avery's a yellow. He was studying abroad in Ireland, and he sent us this text. It said, tour was awesome. Also talked to somebody from the UK the whole time. It was really interesting. Just got on the bus, back on the bus to Limerick, safe and sound. Okay, that's a very blue text, except for the fact that he put awesome in all caps. Blues don't usually do that. I mean, we don't even give 5 stars. Like we do 4 because maybe there's room for improvement. So for him to put all caps with an exclamation point, the tour must have been great. And then of course, in the last sentence, he said, he's back safe and sound. My daughter, my yellow daughter responds to him and says this. She says, yay, exclamation point, exclamation point. I'm so thrilled to hear that. That's so cool that you got to talk to somebody from the UK, and I'm so glad you're back safe and had fun, emoji, emoji. Okay, this is such a yellow text. She does not even mention the tour at all. She only hears that he talked to somebody interesting, and that's where she made the connection. And if you're looking at the same screen I'm looking at, it also does not say in Bryce's text that he had fun. It just says it in Avery's text. So if you look at 1 minute later, Bryce writes this to us. It says, oh no, somebody sat next to me on the bus. The whole trip is ruined. This is a very blue response to having somebody come in their space. So I'm sure right now some of you are looking at and going, that's me. That's what I would have said. And that's exactly how an exchange between a blue and a yellow might go. But I did not want to leave you red and greens out because, again, when you learn about temperament, somebody's talking and somebody's hearing. A red is talking, a green's hearing. Then a green talks and a red hears. There's all this gray space. My goal with you in this journey is to eliminate the gray space. That's what we're trying to do. So let's listen to an exchange between a red and a green. These are co-workers of mine. Jessica's a red. I don't think Jessica even has a secondary. and she's talking to a coworker who's green, and she's saying, I'm stopping for coffee before the meeting. Do you want something? And Christy's response is this. She's thinking about it. She might even be typing. Jessica's waiting, and she's waiting, and she's waiting. And then Jessica says, hello, I'm in the drive-through. And what does Christy say? She's typing again and thinking. And you know, Reds out there, even the ones watching right now, are probably the hairs going up on the back of your neck because there's no answer. And then Christy says this, maybe a vanilla ice latte, or if that's too tricky, I'll just have black coffee, that's fine. Or if you're already on your way back, don't worry about it. I'm good with whatever. Okay, Jessica, one almost at the same time texting. Which one? You have 10 seconds to decide. You can hear Jessica in her Odyssey with her hand gestures doing like this, steering with her knees, because I'm sure Christy's driving her bonko, especially when she sees this next text. What's Christy doing? Thinking. She's thinking again and typing. And then she says, I'll have an iced Americano with cream and sugar. Okay, that's not even in the whole first text she just said before. So what can Jessica do almost exactly at the same time? All she can think about is to send Christy an eye roll. So I hope through that exchange that you just saw that you can even see temperament in text. You can see it in the words that they use. You can see it in the emojis that they use or they don't use. So this is really important because knowing your temperament and that of your, and fill in the blank, your spouse, your child, your coworker, it's going to change every conversation you have. So what I want to let you guys know is 3 things. When you're learning the temperaments, it's going to allow you the skill to pause, because we have to learn to pause in order to understand the power of our words. And we have to learn that Paul says we have to pause, lift others up according to their needs, and benefit all who listen. So when you know the temperaments, it's going to allow you to show grace. And it's going to allow you to celebrate the differences in other people. So just remember, the words that you use are the words that you choose. So please take the time to go through the study once, twice, whatever it takes on this journey, so that we can collectively learn to speak kind words and build each other up according to your needs and benefit all who listen. Ben, I think we have some questions that you want to answer.
Oh, it's so good, Kathleen. I feel like you've probably done this once or twice before.
A few times.
I feel like I just can't get enough of this. You know, one of the things that I noticed that you really emphasize this time is that you've said it before. I'm just going to slow on the uptake, I guess. This really, with so many personality studies, and I love them. They feel all focused on me. It's like, okay, learn your strengths, learn your weaknesses, learn your wirings, learn your personality, and it feels very like inward, kind of selfish focused. But everything that I feel like you talked about, even though you're helping me uncover me, it's actually not even about me. It's about who I'm interacting with. It's about my spouse, or it's about my kids, or it's about my coworkers. And I find that really refreshing.
Well, again, it's just like what I had said earlier. It's Jesus was the strengths of all the temperaments. The one thing that also all the temperaments share is selfishness. So we are really on a mission to move from selfishness to servitude. That is our idea, is to understand that your words have power. I mean, Jesus spoke the world into existence. So, you know, over and over in scripture, he tells us, on your tongue lays the power of life or death. And that is really, we are to show Christ through our words.
Yeah.
It has to be through who we are.
Well, let me get a little, I'll get a little personal with you.
Okay.
Um, when it comes to marriages, I'll tell you what our combination is. Laura is my wife,
Okay.
and I'm curious what the hardest combination is. So our combination is you were talking about Jessica earlier.
Yes.
I think I don't. So for those of you who this is your first introduction to the temperaments, you we usually talk about them in terms of like your combination. You may have one that's primary, one that's secondary, but kind of a blending of colors. I am depending on the day, I'm a green yellow or a yellow green. I kind of vacillate back and forth. Um, my wife is a double red. Uh, I don't know if that's a thing, but you said Jessica is a double red, so
Yeah.
Laura is a double red, and I love her dearly.
Yes.
Uh, what's the most difficult combination that you've seen when it comes to marriages? Like
Well, the most,
combination of like husband wife.
yeah, it's not even just marriages, but in marriages, the most difficult combination is the red green combination.
Oh,
Because again,
so
like you have, you,
us.
you guys, and
Yeah.
again, what's fascinating to me is that that's the one that I see most marriages are red green combinations, which is fascinating because it's the most difficult. But remember, it's the most difficult because you're not only polar opposite, but the things that you share are weaknesses, unfortunately. So, but what attracted you to each other was in your strengths. Your strengths are her weaknesses, and her strengths are your weaknesses. And of course, when we're dating, right, you're throwing all your strengths on the table. And that's why you're attracted to each other. Then, if I was to ask you just really quick to tell me two things of why you married your beautiful bride, what would you tell me?
That she's gorgeous and amazing.
Yeah, a little bit more descriptive than that. We know that. That's a bit. What was it about her?
I mean, I love her decisiveness and I love her drivenness. I love those types of things about
Yes.
her.
And see, so and you just did what most couples do in my office, and they say exact things right off their spouse's strengths list. But unfortunately, in marriage, we do this thing and we get married, right? And in scripture, it says in marriage, there'll be trials.
Mm.
What happens is once we're married, we start to get comfortable. And once we get comfortable, guess what starts to rear its head? The weaknesses.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, we're trying to change that spouse to be more like us. When really, what I want you to do is stay in dating mode,
Mm.
like not with other people, with your wife, but stay in dating mode, right? Because then you're constantly looking at for the best in the other person.
And it's like you're searching for their strengths rather than trying to find their weaknesses.
Yes. I mean, if we would just learn to look at other people like God sees them and how you saw them at the beginning, a lot of the conflict would go away because, again, in James, it says, why do we quarrel and fight? We quarrel and fight because we're not getting our way. So there rears its head of selfishness again. So the diagonals can have conflict, but they also, if people will humble themselves, it can be the strongest combination, the absolute strongest combination.
This is real time. So my wife is in another room watching this right now.
Oh, great.
The red, and she's correcting me on what I'm saying. Isn't that so red?
It's awesome. I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome because in this journey, I heard you talk about a couple weeks. You've had a deep week and you had a funny week. I would hope that with the temperaments, people realize that this is a life-changing journey and it can have humor in it and it's going to have conflict. But the things that people are going to hear, they cannot unhear. And it's going to change their life. It will change how they parent. It will change how they're married. It will change what they bring into the workforce. It really does impact all elements of your life.
All right, talk about that really quickly. So we've been kind of, I mean, at least in my mind, I've been focusing on marriage, but you've talked about parenting a couple of
Yes.
times. What how can we start to kind of guess our kids' temperaments? My wife and I have done this, but I'm wondering, like, for those of us who maybe this is the first time you've ever been exposed to this,
Mhm.
it's hard not to go, oh, I wonder about my kids, and I wonder how they're wired. Talk about how we might start to kind of think through how our kids are wired and colored.
Well, what I hear a lot is, "Oh my gosh, I'm too late. I've ruined my kids. I didn't know what they were." I also believe that God is a God of perfect timing and order. So even the people who are watching it and hearing it for the first time, this is when they were supposed to hear it. So no
Mm,
matter how old your kids are, this is when you were supposed to hear it. The first thing I want to say, though, it's so important for you to understand you first.
mm,
And when I mean you, I don't even mean you in your marriage. I mean you as an individual, because we first have to figure out how God wired us. And then we have to be aware of it. And then we have to apply it. And then we have to become authentic. And we have to become that very best version of us, so that when I wake up, I have something to give my husband. Each and every morning, I have to be able to love me. I have to control my self talk, because my words become thoughts and my thoughts become action. So I have to learn to stay in my strengths so that I can build Brad up according to his needs and benefit all who listen. And then we can come together as parents. And we have to remember that our temperaments are our temperaments for our children. My children, I was chose to be their mom. So there's something about the blue in me that my children, my yellow daughter and my blue son, that connection, that's what God designed. But what we have to do is know ourselves and then start to understand our children, so that when we're talking to our children, we are building them up as God designed them to be. We had to discipline Avery different than we disciplined Bryce. They're two totally opposite temperaments. So again, it's that according to their needs, and then benefit all who listen. So parenting becomes a whole different thing. And people at first go, well, gosh, I have 4 kids or I have 6 kids. I'm telling you, if you understand your child's temperament, parenting becomes a lot easier than trying to treat everybody the same, because that's going to backfire on you.
It'd be much easier. It feels like the just to have one blanket, like here's the rules and here's how we interact and here's how I discipline and here's how I set goals, but that's
No.
not dealing with them according to what they need.
Yeah, well, you're going to have the red child who's going to buck back at that.
Yep.
And you're going to, have, the yellow child that if it's not fun, they're going to, be causing all kinds of chaos and throwing temper tantrums and all kinds of things. So it's really important to understand how the child is wired, so
Mm.
that we can raise them up in the way they should go so they don't detour from it.
Well, and I love that you started this off saying you're not too late, because I think a lot of people that could be watching this are going, "Gosh, I've already messed up my kids." Even
Mhm.
like my kids are already out of the house, and okay, Kathleen, it's great that you're talking about parenting, but I've already messed up those kids, and my relationship is broken.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I also really gravitate when you say that. Really, you're saying God's sovereign, and He brought you as a blue parent or you as a red parent into their life for a reason, and that it's not too late.
Yeah.
um, and maybe even that can help some people with some handles around, well, why has it been so difficult with this child but not that one? Why has
Mhm.
it been so difficult in this season? Because I thought we were connected and now we're not. Maybe this temperament sheds more light into some of the difficulties than they even anticipated it would.
Oh, exactly. And the thing is, it's one of those kind of like, if the children are younger, they actually are going to learn this faster than the parents are going to learn it, because unfortunately, parents bring baggage with them. Children are so pure in their temperaments, and you can identify a temperament in a child as early as 9 months. So, there's a
Really?
whole way that you can do this study with marriage. There's a whole way that you can do it with parenting. There's a whole way you can do it with small groups. And in each time that you do it, you're going to become more fluent in the temperaments, because it's like speaking other languages.
Yeah.
If I'm blue speaking yellow to you, I have to learn yellow. I don't have to become yellow, but I want to learn to speak yellow so that you feel more loved and understood. And that's the goal, not to become something different, but
Yes.
to love another person better.
I love that. I'm not surrendering a part of myself.
Nope.
I'm just choosing to serve you with the words that I'm using.
Yes. And here's what's great about it. I'm sure most married people who are listening have done the love languages, for example. And I love it when people talk about other type of assessment things, because that's when it solidifies what I do.
Mm.
Because just think about the love language is the book for a while, the study. Again, you're a yellow and I'm a blue. But what if both of our love languages were words of affirmation?
Mm.
Do you see right now how that wouldn't work unless you knew the temperaments?
Yep.
So the temperaments even change other studies to be more effective tools.
Yeah. That's so good.
Yeah.
Kathleen, I feel like every time I hear you present this stuff, one, it makes me want to know more.
Good.
It makes me want to go, okay, I got to get better at this.
Yeah.
But then two, it also helps me see some of the gaps with those that I love the most. So with that,
Yes.
first of all, thank you. This was such a gift. It was so good. And hopefully it was for you too as you're
Yes,
watching.
I enjoyed
As,
it. I love talking about the temperaments.
yeah, we can tell. This has been great for us as a church. Let me tell you guys, church, this. If this has kind of sparked something in you, then we'd love to give you a chance to step and learn this more. We're actually offering a short-term group study that's coming up next month that is specifically on this. It's I said this, you heard that. It starts June 25th, and we're gonna drop the link for that right in the comments. So if you're wanting to know more about this and more about who you are, how God's uniquely wired you so that you can speak words of kindness. And again, I can't quite shake that. That seems so timely right now.
Yes,
Uh,
it does.
but to speak words of kindness, you have to know yourself and you have to know others. And like I said, I already told you, my group went through this and we absolutely loved it. I would love if your group, or if you're in a group, great, you can go through it with your group together. If you're not in a group, that's all right. Jump in and do this study with us. June 25th is when it starts. Registration link is going to be in the comments. And we love if you'd kind of take this as a next step. The other thing, just a couple of other ways that you could take a next step. One, I mentioned at the top that we did 3 other Mayas for Marriage events. If you are interested in and you didn't catch all of those, now we're going to drop the link in the comments so you can see all of those. So you can see everything that we covered for this month and go back and catch some of those even next month as we're going forward. Finally, one other way that you can kind of take a step forward, a next step for you is maybe you're not ready to take a step into a short-term group and you did everything that we offered for Mayas for Marriage, but you're hearing this stuff from Kathleen and you're going, I need more. Like I need to consume some more. Then we actually created a playlist on our YouTube channel, and we're going to drop that in the comments now. And it's a lot of Kathleen's stuff. One, it's a video on 90 minutes to better communication, which Kathleen, you crushed that. And then the other was a unique series that you put out called Quarantine Quarrels that also felt really timely for us right now as we're in this quarantine season of life. So we put those on our channel, on our YouTube channel, and you can click the link there and see all of those and just peruse all of those as you're trying to find out more about yourself and trying to discover how you can speak words of kindness to those that God's brought in your life. So there you go. 3 steps you can take. We'd love if you join us, though, on June 25th for that study that we're going to offer. That is all of Kathleen's content. I think you're going to love that. Kathleen, it's been a joy to have you on here. You've been a great blessing to our church, and we want to thank you for your time.
Yeah, come and take a ride in my truck.
Will do. See you, Kathleen.
Bye.